Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, Part 6, in which all our protagonists find the thin veneer of tranquility in their lives, tested by family and friends, with farcical and tragic consequences. Chapter 19. Left alone, Darya Alexandrovna looked around her room with a housewifely eye. Everything she had seen while approaching the house and passing through it, and now in her own room, gave her an impression of opulence and display, and that new European luxury she had only read about in English novels, but had never seen in Russia, let alone in the country. Everything was new, from the new French wallpaper to the carpet that covered the entire floor. The bed had springs and a mattress, a special headboard, and little pillows with raw silk slips. The marble washstand, the dressing table, the couch, the tables, the bronze clock on the mantelpiece, the curtains on the windows and doors, it was all expensive and new. The smart maid who came to offer services, her dress and coiffure more fashionable than Dolly's, was as new and expensive as the rest of the room. Darya Alexandrovna liked her politeness, neatness, and obliging manner, but she felt ill at ease with her. She was embarrassed before her for the patched chemise which, as ill luck would have it, she had packed by mistake. She was ashamed of those very patches and mendings which she had been so proud of at home. At home it was clear that for 6 chemises she needed 17 yards of 9 suk at 90 kopecks a yard, which would come to over 15 rubles, besides the work and the trimmings, and these were 15 rubles gained. But in front of the maid she felt not so much ashamed as ill at ease. It was a great relief for Darya Alexandrovna when her old acquaintance, Annushka, came into the room. The smart maid was needed by her mistress, and Annushka stayed with Darya Alexandrovna. Annushka was obviously very glad of the lady's arrival, and talked incessantly. Dolly noticed that she wanted to give her opinion of the mistress situation, especially of the Count's love and devotion for Anna, but Dolly took care to interrupt her each time she began to speak of it. "I grew up with Anna Arkadyevna. She's dearest of all to me. So it's not for us to judge. And you'd think to love like that. So please, send this to be washed, if possible," Darya Alexandrovna interrupted her. "Very well, ma'am. We have 2 women especially for small laundry, but the linen's all done by machine. The Count sees to everything himself. What husband would?" Dolly was glad when Anna came in, and by her arrival interrupted Annushka's chatter. Anna had changed into a very simple cambric dress. Dolly looked attentively at this simple dress. She knew what such simplicity meant, and what money was paid for it. "An old acquaintance," Anna said of Annushka. Anna was no longer embarrassed. She was perfectly free and calm. Dolly saw that she had now fully recovered from the impression her arrival had made on her, and had assumed that tone of superficial indifference which indicated that the door to the compartment in which she kept her feelings and innermost thoughts was locked. "Well, and how is your little girl, Anna?" asked Dolly. "Annie?" So she called her daughter Anna. "Well, quite well. She's gained a lot of weight. Would you like to see her? Come, I'll show her to you. There's been terrible trouble with the nannies." She began to tell the story. "We have an Italian wet nurse. Good, but so stupid. We wanted to send her away, but the child is so used to her that we still keep her." But how did you arrange? Dolly began to ask about what name the girl would have. But noticing Anna's sudden frown, she changed the sense of the question. How did you arrange about weaning her? But Anna understood. That's not what you wanted to ask. You wanted to ask about her name, didn't you? That torments Alexei. She has no name. That is, she's Karenina, said Anna, narrowing her eyes so that only her joined eyelashes could be seen. However, her face suddenly brightened. We'll talk about that later. Come, I'll show her to you. Elle est très gentille. She crawls already. In the nursery, the luxury that had struck Darya Alexandrovna everywhere in the house struck her still more. Here were carriages ordered from England, and contraptions for learning to walk, and a specially designed couch like a billiard table for crawling, and rocking chairs, and special new baths. It was all of English make, sturdy, of good quality, and obviously very expensive. The room was big, very high-ceilinged and bright. When they came in, the little girl was sitting on a chair at the table in just her shift, drinking bouillon, which she spilled all down her front. The child was being fed by a Russian maid who served in the nursery and who apparently ate with her. Neither the wet nurse nor the nanny was there. They were in the next room, where they could be heard talking in a strange French, the only language in which they could communicate with each other. On hearing Anna's voice, a tall, well-dressed English governess with an unpleasant face and an impure expression came through the door, hastily shaking her blonde curls, and at once began justifying herself, though Anna had not accused her of anything. To Anna's every word the governess hastily chimed, "Yes, my lady," several times. Darya Alexandrovna liked the dark-brown, dark-haired, ruddy-cheeked little girl very much, with her sturdy red body and taut goose-flesh skin, despite the stern expression with which she looked at the new person. She even envied her healthy look. She also liked very much the way the girl crawled. None of her children had crawled like that. This girl, when she was sitting on the rug with her dress tucked behind her, was very sweet. She looked at the grown-ups with shining, dark eyes like a little animal, obviously glad to be admired, smiling and turning her legs sideways. She leaned energetically on her hands and quickly lifted her whole bottom up, then again moved her little hands forward. But Darya Alexandrovna very much disliked the general spirit of the nursery, and the governess in particular. How Anna, with her knowledge of people, could have engaged such an unsympathetic, unrespectable governess for her child, she could explain to herself only by the fact that a good one would not have come to such an irregular family as Anna's. Moreover, she could tell at once from a few words that Anna, the wet nurse, the nanny, and the baby did not get on together, and that the mother's visit was an unusual thing. Anna wanted to give her little girl a toy, but could not find it. Most surprising of all was that when asked how many teeth the girl had, Anna was mistaken and knew nothing about the two latest teeth. "It pains me sometimes that I seem so superfluous here," said Anna, leaving the nursery and picking up her train so as to avoid the toys lying by the door. "It wasn't like that with my first." "I thought the opposite," Darya Alexandrovna said timidly. "Oh, no. You know I saw him, Seryozha," Anna said, narrowing her eyes as if peering at something in the distance. "However, we'll talk about it later. You wouldn't believe it. I'm like a hungry person who suddenly has a full meal put in front of her and doesn't know where to start. The full meal is you, and the conversations I'm going to have with you, which I haven't been able to have with anybody. And I don't know which conversation to get to first. Mais je ne vous ferai grâce de rien. I have to say everything." "Ah, yes, I should describe for you the company you'll find here," she began. "I'll begin with the ladies. Princess Varvara. You know her, and I know your and Stiva's opinion of her. Stiva says the whole aim of her life consists in proving her superiority to Aunt Katerina Pavlovna. It's all true, but still she's kind, and I'm so grateful to her. There was a moment in Petersburg when I needed a chaperone, and she came along. But really, she's kind. She made my situation a lot easier. I see you don't realize all the difficulty of my situation there in Petersburg," she added. Here I'm perfectly calm and happy. Well, about that later. I must go on to the list. Then there's Vyashki. He's the marshal and a very decent man, but he wants something from Alexei. You see, with his wealth, now that we've settled in the country, Alexei could have great influence. Then there's Tushkevich. You've seen him. He was hanging around Betsy. Now he's been dismissed and he's come to us. As Alexei puts it, he's one of those people who are quite agreeable if taken as they would like to appear. Et puis, il est comme il faut, as Princess Varvara says. Then there's Veslowski, the one you know. A very nice boy, she said, and a sly smile puckered her lips. What's this wild story with Levine? Veslowski told Alexei, but we can't believe it. Il est très gentil et naïf, she said, again with the same smile. Men need diversion, and Alexei needs an audience, so I value this whole company. We must keep it gay and animated, so that Alexei won't wish for anything new. Then you'll meet the steward, a German, very nice and knows his business. Alexei values him highly. Then the doctor, a young man, not an outright nihilist, but eats with his knife, but a very good doctor. Then the architect, un petit coup. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.